Hello, War of Word users. I'm Govinda Dasu, and I'm going to be interviewing David on resolve the United States should intervene to protect the sovereignty of Israel at all costs. So, first of all, A or nay?
What? Oh, yeah. I think it's a little more complicated than that, as with most issues. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so controversial. A lot of it depends. At the moment, Israel doesn't need the help because I think a lot of the countries in the Middle East have far bigger problems with the Arab Spring and whatnot. And recently, the Arab League declared that they're all cracking down in Syria because of Syria's constant murders and those protests. So Israel doesn't need the help at the moment because everything with Israel, Palestine, all these issues have all been stalled because of the Arab Spring. So I think Israel's not one of America's concerns right now.
Really?
Yeah, because of all the other problems that Israel's enemies have at the moment.
But doesn't Israel really represent the one force of, like, what Western civilization in the Middle East?
To a degree, yeah, but you have to remember now that Egypt overthrew their dictatorship, Libya overthrew their dictatorship, Tunisia overthrew their dictatorship.
Right, but they don't necessarily have a democracy.
A democracy at the moment. No, that's true. Egypt still has a military rule right now. It's all martial law. But
Right.
I think at the moment Israel doesn't need any help. They seem to be doing all right economically. They're doing a lot better than we are, and they also recently this whole Occupy Wall Street thing was actually started by them over the summer. This 1% versus 99% thing. Yeah, they actually started that before. It was cool, and so they actually already passed reforms for what's it called? For economic, they passed economic reform. So right now they're actually doing well economically, a lot better than us. So in my opinion, I think we have to worry about stuff on our own soil. We should need to put our concerns above others at the moment, especially when you consider the fact that Israel really doesn't need our help at the moment.
Right, but your argument is that Israel doesn't need our help, but Israel's been surviving since 1940, the 1940s when after World War II it was created as a state because of United States and other allied countries' intervention and because of their support.
So are you asking me if I feel it's right that they did support them in the past?
Yeah, in a sense, yeah. Do you think that the past support was justified?
Probably, because if you think about it, in the past, there were a lot of, the creation of Israel was controversial, and also the expulsion of those that were living in Palestine at the time was also extremely controversial, probably one of the biggest issues at the time, or at the moment. But I think the American support of Israel in the past is probably justified from an American point of view, because at the time Israel was seen as a major underdog fighting for democratic freedom, and also you have to consider that it was right after the Holocaust, and all those sentiments are still fresh in the memory. So everybody really wanted to rush to Israel's aid to help them to be able to have their own country,
now,
because they've been looking for their own country.
Is your perspective shaped by your heritage in any way?
No. I'd like to think not, and I actually get into a lot of arguments with my parents over Israel because they're like completely pro-Israel, Israel can do no wrong kind of people.
Yeah.
And I actually get into a lot of arguments over them. But I think a lot of the issues are more modern day problems I have with Israel, not what they've done in the past, other than the expulsion of Arabs from their homes at the time. I don't really have a lot of issues with what they've done in the past, because I think at the time, by the past I mean what they did, how they handled these wars, for example, because they really didn't. They had a lot of problems in the sense that without support,
when you go, you've been to Israel, right? Yeah. When you go to Israel, are there Muslims?
Yeah.
And do you feel that Muslims are treated equally?
Yeah, they are. Muslims in Israel don't have problems. I feel it's the ones outside of Israel that
have problems Israel.
Within those Gaza, West Bank, and East Jerusalem, I feel those are the ones that have the problems. Because I guess Israel's not really. They're occupying it, but they don't actually. It's a kind of a huge question.
So say the United States took away completely its support for Israel. Do you think that Israel would be able to survive surrounded by countries that don't want Israel to exist?
That's a really, really tough question because it's really hard to see. I mean, at the moment, Hamas in Gaza was really starved because Egypt, Mubarak's regime, they cooperated with Israel because of the peace agreements back in '73 or something, and so they were kind of starved because they had that blockade set up. But this new government in Egypt, which is a people's government, none of them like Israel, and so they all want the blockade's been lifted. Now Hamas is getting supplies. I mean, of course, so are the people in Gaza, but at the same time, Hamas is also getting weapons and supplies, and so there has been some shelling in Israel recently, and so I feel like if that happens in all the countries around Israel, and they all like sort of starts, I mean, something could happen akin to what happened in Turkey or Iran, that a really fundamental group might become empowered because it's a democratically elected.
Now, speaking of religion in general, do you think that Jerusalem is part of Israel?
No, not East Jerusalem. West Jerusalem is part of. I mean, according to what happened in 1949, West Jerusalem is part of Israel. East Jerusalem is not. They took that in 1967 illegally.
Okay. Well, thank you for this interview.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Very sensitive topic.
No worries.
Yeah, Gobi. David. Yeah! That was